guy's tricked. He had to be here.
All right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys, when I first got this assignment, I'm sure like most of you, I was confused on how to persuade people what to persuade them on. You know, after a few days of research, doing different topics, trying to figure it out, it finally hit me. What's something that every single person in this room should be doing in their life? Starting from a young age, all the way up to even you. I don't know his age. He looks like 30, you know. But what's the one thing you should all be doing? Questioning stuff you hear. You should be questioning everything you hear and not really trusting things at face value. Now, why is this? Because a lot of times humans lie. It's a fact, they'll lie to you to get where they want. So, to explain to you why you should be questioning things, I'm going to bring up 3 myths that we hear today. 3 myths that probably affect all of us, heard of. First is going to be the gender wage gap. The second will be global warming. The third will be the tiny minority of Muslims that are radical. Now, to start off with the gender wage gap, I'm sure we've all heard a woman makes 70 cents to a man's dollar, right? I don't see any heads nodding. Okay, that's weird. Well, just recently as I was doing research, I saw it's now supposedly 79 cents to a man's dollar. You know, but in a study done by Harvard economy professor Claudia Golden, she looked into it to see why women were earning less money. And what it turns out is the fact is women are actually not working as hard as men. They're taking more time off for their family, their kids, and they take less risky jobs. They take jobs that don't require as much work, and they go for degrees that don't necessarily pay as much as like a degree a man would go for. Now, in another study done by Mark Perry, who is an economist at American Enterprise Institute, he took the average hours a woman worked in a week, and the average hours a man worked in a week. This was done in 2014. So I'm not like taking studies from 1990s, okay? And what he was shown after doing this, it's that women tended to work 35 to 39 hours a week, and men actually worked 41 to 43 hours a week. That's a big difference. It's not the fact that women are earning less, it's the fact that they're just not working as much. Now, when it comes to the risking jobs, the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed that back in 2014, 92% of the deaths in the workplace were men. 92%. And that's because men are taking dangerous jobs. And dangerous jobs tend to pay more. Now, moving on to the global warming myth. I'm sure we've all heard about it, you know. But how many of us actually know what global warming is? The definition of it. Which is, I got one guy who, interaction. So, global warming, the definition of it is the gradual increase in temperatures on the globe because of man-made emissions. Now, global warming first came about back in 1998 when a scientist brought to Congress a graph called the hockey stick graph. This guy, got it. See, I'm touching on everyone. I got this. The hockey stick graph. And the scientist, Michael Mann, brought it up, and what it showed is that over several hundred years, the temperature was steady, then all of a sudden, once we started industrializing and having emissions, it shot up, much like a hockey stick. Now, after a few months of hysteria, people started questioning it. You know, this isn't really adding up. Why is, you know, you have this graph, but we're going to look at history real quick, and it's showing that what you've done is completely false. Now, if we look at history, we can see in the 12th and 13th century that the Earth actually went through a climate change and it was going through a warming period. And during this time, Vikings came over to Greenland and colonized. Now, after several hundred years of being there, they went into the 14th and 15th century where the Earth started to cool. And it got so cold that the Vikings couldn't stay in Greenland anymore, and they had to move. So when Michael Mann had this brought to his attention, he tried to deny the whole thing. He's like, oh, that's not true. Global warming is true. Completely true. But then we look at more science. And in the last 100 to 150 years, the Earth has only warmed by 1 degree Celsius, if that. Now, losing myself. Sorry. It's only warmed by 1 degree Celsius over the last 100 and 150 years, which is proving that global warming has been false. And now all of a sudden, since global warming came out, the industry actually became into almost a $16 billion industry. So is that because maybe people lied to try to get more money for their research? Yeah, that's for you to question, you to find out. I'm not sure, I don't know. But now, moving on to the next topic, the tiny minority of radical Islam, or Muslims, I'm sorry. Now, when I say radical, I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking terrorists, extremists. That's just not true. When I say radical, it means people that believe Sharia law should be the law of the land. Now, how many know what Sharia law is? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, Sharia law, by definition, is Muhammad's teachings should be the law of the land, should be legal. Now, some of these teachings are, if a person is caught stealing, he'll get his right hand chopped off. That women can be killed if it's justified by stoning. And if a woman is raped, she has to have at least 4 witnesses that are male to back her up. Now, I've been hearing a lot that a tiny amount of Muslims believe that Sharia law should be the law. But after doing a lot of research, found out that approximately there are $1.6 billion, whoa, not dollars, 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. And a census done by Pew Research over a bunch of the different countries in the world. They asked them how many believe should Sharia law be the law of the land. And after doing this study in 2014 or 13, somewhere around there, they showed that in Indonesia, 50% of the Muslim population believe there should be law of the land. In Egypt, 65%. Afghanistan, 99%. Iran, 83%. And in Nigeria, it was 71%. Now, I'm not going to tell you all the percentages, because one, I didn't memorize every single one. And it would be really boring to sit up here and talk about percentages. Really boring. But if you do add all this up, it would equal roughly around a little more than 800 million Muslims believe Sharia law should be the law of the land. And if you do the math, obviously higher than 800 million out of 1.6 is a majority. It's not a tiny minority like they want you to believe. The Muslims are actually majority radical. Now, in closing, I shouldn't have said that. Didn't lead up too well. But I've talked about some things, some very controversial myths that we've heard. But did I sit up here and just spew a bunch of bullcrap to you? And fake all this? Or am I telling the truth? Yeah. But if you don't believe anything I've said, I challenge you to question what I've done. And I would love to see your facts. Oh my God, she's here. Yeah, we got enough time, right? What the speech is about.
All right, Ryan, what did you think?
Well, to start off, I like the attention device because he was, making me rack my brain for what am I supposed to be doing from the time I'm little till the time apparently the teacher is old.
It's already calling on.
But yeah, I like the attention device. The one thing that I say that was a little outstanding was that he kind of got lost about 3 different times. And then I'm thinking that he wore a hole in the carpet from all the pacing. But yeah, I really liked how he had the structure of 1, 2, 3, and then ended it also with, hey, if you don't like what I'm saying, or if you think that I'm not telling the truth, go ahead and check it out for yourself. It's okay to just question it. I like how he tied that into the beginning.
Okay. Yeah. Go
One
ahead.
more thing is that I also like that he used, like in the beginning when he said the myth that women earn less than men, he used a woman who did the study as a stat, not a man who did a study. Because a man, it could just be written off as, oh, this is just bias because, man's doing a study, so of course he's going to side with men. But it was a woman from Harvard University who said that men are the ones who are, working more than women.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting topic that we ought to question things that are presented to us as fact, and I think that that's a perfectly legitimate point. You have 3 examples that you're going to use to talk about this, and I think that that's reasonable also, although it does make the speech feel a little bit like we're getting 3 different subjects because they're so completely different from one another. And what you need to do, I think, is tie them back a little bit more to the idea that these are presuppositions that people have. Everybody's heard this sort of thing. So, for example, on the first point, you might point out the president even cites that figure in the State of the Union address, or on this global warming myth that, the state of California has laws that have been put into place to adjust on these sorts of things. It's some of the premises here have been legitimately challenged. They claim, the advocates of global warming claim that it's a scientific fact, that there's consensus on this issue. But the truth of the matter is that there appears to be a lot of controversy on the issue, including on some of the fundamental principles that are being talked about. And the same thing with radical Islam. You say, people say that the radical views are really the minority views, but if you believe Sharia law is radical, then here's what the criteria is. So I think you've got interesting examples about how there are all these things that people buy into that maybe we shouldn't be buying into, but you need to connect it more to that notion that people just accept this kind of stuff, that this is in fact something that we are not questioning and that we ought to be questioning that. I thought you did a good job providing evidence on each of the individual points. That part was good, and the research was good. Ryan's already pointed out the main issue with the delivery. You know what the main issue of delivery is. You've got nervous feet. You're dancing all the time. You're going to have to force yourself to just plant once in a while. I almost want to do the thing that I talked about where I draw the circles on the ground or tape your feet to the ground or something. It's just because your gestures otherwise are pretty good. I mean, you're looking at us, you're changing the orientation of your body, you've got nice hand gestures when you're doing those things, but it's like anxiety, and it just wanders around repeatedly. Okay, well, I understand that we have another speaker suddenly.